Welcome to the Real Estate Development Land to Legacy podcast, where we discuss what it takes to get a property developed. As a side venture, become a full-time property developer, or passively invest in development projects. I'm Eugene Gershman, bringing over 20 years of industry experience to guide you through the dynamic world of real estate development. This podcast is designed to provide you with actionable insights and inspiration. And today's guest is going to prove to you that you know nothing about how to invest in real estate and reduce your taxes legally. Okay, I'm talking about myself as I'm about to learn something new. I apologize for interrupting the scheduled programming, but I have to make this disclosure. Since our conversation with our guest, I have actually done a little bit of research and found out that the subject matter may be quite controversial, and not all licensed professionals agree with the statements our guest is making. So, just a disclosure, this is not a legal opinion, this is not a legal advice or tax advice. Please seek advice of your own paid professionals with their corresponding licenses in their field before you're making any investment or tax or legal decisions. Sally Gimon is joining us from North Carolina. She will help you save taxes. You will no longer have to pay capital gains, interest, income, dividend income, rental income, royalties. I cannot even believe that I'm saying that. Is this all legal, Sally? What am I talking about?
It's all legal. It's in the IRS tax code 643B. And I just want to say thank you, Eugene, for having me on the show because so few people have ever heard of this. I mean, this is what the Rockefellers and DuPonts have. I personally, I've been a real estate investor since 2018. And in 2019, when my tax bracket went from 22% up to 24%, all of a sudden I had to pay so much more in capital gains than what I thought. And I researched it for 5 months. And I'm helping clients save money all over the country.
Wow. So it's called Spendthrift Trust. I can't even pronounce it.
So the IRS tax code 643B talks about the spendthrift. The trust, the full name, if you're ready for this, it's irrevocable, complex, discretionary, non-grantor, spendthrift trust. All 5 elements are super important. Irrevocable goes from generation to generation. Complex, it holds money from day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, decade to decade. 97% of the trusts sold every year are what my mom and dad had, what Susie Orman talks about on PBS television. The family trust or the living trust, all that does is avoid probate and then it dissolves. This is not your mom and dad's trust. This is what the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, and the Carnegies have. This is very specialized. Irrevocable, complex, discretionary. Whoever's a trustee or trustees can leave the rules for all the beneficiaries. Even from the grave, they can't change it. There's no contesting of the will. There's no, hey, this person meant something else. Whatever's written down goes that way. Non-grantor. When you start the trust, you're going to have a settler or the trust who's going to set up the trust, and they won't be a beneficiary, and then they will be a trustee for 5 minutes and then sign themselves away. This makes the trust 100% private. Nobody can research what you have. And then the part about spendthrift, that's been in front of the United States Supreme Court on 2 separate occasions. Both times the Supreme Court has favored it, says it's legal, and if it's as legal can be. What else can go in front of the Supreme Court twice?
Right. Wow, interesting. Yes, I've definitely heard of irrevocable trust, but that's really where my personal knowledge ends. Revocable and irrevocable is what I've been reading about and definitely well familiar with in my family. So can it be set up in any state, or are there certain states that are more favored versus others?
Depending on, it could be in any state. I've got 2 trusts out of Puerto Rico because it's federal law. So if you think of something like Louisiana that has the Napoleonic law for their state law, this is on the federal level. So with the trust, you're going to save federal taxes and state taxes. There's a business trust for U.S. business owners, 1099 income earners, entrepreneurs. That will save 90% of the federal taxes and no longer pay state income taxes. And then the beneficial trust is for all investors. So with you doing land development, what we should talk about the beneficial trust.
Beneficial trusts. Interesting. And so would you do it for just a one-off project, or would you recommend having it set up for just your overall life and for many different things?
Personally, I started with just one product. I'm not into multi development, but you're going to have an EIN number. And how I've set things up, because one of my notes was not paying on time, so I went to my banker. I'm going to be honest. I'm with Wells Fargo. I spent 2 hours with him, so I have each bank account now as a certain address, so I could prove that I can foreclose on this note in Ohio because they're not paying me. And the Rockefeller's Trust has 400 people under the same EIN. They all have their own separate bank accounts. They're filing their own 1041 tax return for what they're responsible for, if that makes sense.
Interesting. So, okay. Um, we typically work with property owners who have development ambitions. They come to us and they typically contribute their property into a joint venture. We set up an LLC where we become partners and we help them develop a project. How would the structure be different with this type of trust?
Very different. Unfortunately, LLCs, S corps, and C corps are what's called statutory law, state law. So that keeps you open.
Hmm.
I can go out to the Secretary of State or the Corporation Commission of every state and research the LLCs. Um, Depending on how you're working with this, we do have what's called a real estate syndication trust, where there is an overall, like you'd be I hate to call it the mothership, but then each property would be like an individual property that way, because everyone wants to save taxes. And then when it goes from the overall mothership down to the different properties, there's no taxes involved with that. Capital gains, interest income, depending on how I'm not sure how with your development how you pay people out. If it is um, they get monthly paychecks, quarterly paychecks, or whatever else, they can save money too. I've worked with quite a few real estate development companies. Um, my most recent one, they were selling an apartment building. They had 12 investors. I made a presentation. The people who had the apartment, they were going to sell it. Quite a. They bought it for $3 million. They're selling it for $12 million. Quite a bit of profit involved. Each of their investors were offered the Spendthrift Trust. Of the 12 investors, 11 of them took the trust and saved the capital gains. The smallest investment that was awarded at the time, when they started with the apartment building, was $75,000. Some people had over $200,000 in the apartment building, but still, long-term capital gains
Hmm.
are either 15 or 20%, and it's a quite a chunk of change when you're talking about an extra $9 million being handed out.
Right, right. So these trusts are not taxable on a federal level. Did I understand correctly?
Correct. So it's on the federal level because the federal taxes. Unfortunately, it does not
Hmm.
take care of property taxes that you're going to have on either the county level or on the city level. But interest income is for passive investors. If you're doing creative financing, seller financing, subject to real estate, um, rental income. Do you hold the property, or do you just develop the property and then sell it to somebody else? What do you work with, Eugene?
So we do both ways. In many cases, we develop the property, let it stabilize. If it's an income producing rental property, we'll let it stabilize and then sell it. In some instances, we would choose to hold it. If it's a for sale product like a condominium or a single family development, then obviously it's built and sold right away.
Exactly. So there's different ways to do the real estate. Now, if you're holding
Hmm.
something, you can still take depreciation or cost averaging. But the main thing about
Hmm.
when you're holding something, the four different ways the trust will save you. I don't care what trust you get. It saves you taxes, keeps your information private. We talked about the LLC versus state law versus national law. And then once you
Hmm.
have all your assets in the trust, nobody can sue you. So let's say you're holding a condominium and someone trips and falls and breaks their ankle. They can try to sue you, the individual, but you'll be worth
Hmm.
nothing. All your assets are in the trust, and the lawsuits become frivolous. And then the fourth way: are you aware of the 2024 Corporate Transparency Act from the Treasury Department?
Yes.
Well,
Yep.
most people aren't, so congratulations. But with the spend, you're exempt. The Benson Financial Trust, you're exempt from doing that paperwork. So one of my clients who not multi-family, but 44 single family homes, has 44 LLCs. I just saved him a headache
Mhm.
of doing 44 things of paperwork for the Treasury Department. And just let your audience know, If they
Right.
don't know what we're talking about, it's something the Treasury is collecting. And if you don't do the paperwork for the Treasury Department, if you're an LLC doing business as or corporation, and you don't do the paperwork, you can be fined $10,000 and or 2 years in jail. I mean, it's an ugly bill. It's not even a bill; it's a law right now, and
Yep.
people are not aware of it.
That's right. Yeah, and it's the first year where it's mandatory, right? Every
Exactly.
business needs to file it.
You have until
Yep.
December 31st to file it. And the gentleman I was
Mhm.
just talking about with the 44 single family homes, he's like, I've never heard of this. And I'm like, I sent him, FinTech is the section of the Treasury Department that's in charge of it. So I sent him a 54 page report. And he's just like, I don't want them to know all this information. I'm like, I wouldn't either. I mean, they want your driver's license, they want your passport number, they want your EIN number. I mean, and I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but the Treasury website has been hacked 3 times so far in 2023 that they told us about. How many other times I don't know.
Um, right. Exactly. Exactly. Where is that information going? Nobody knows.
Exactly. Are they
That
going to
is
give it to
absolutely
Homeland
insane.
Security? Are they going to give it to the FBI, the IRS? We don't know. So I
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
less the
Wow.
government knows about me, the happier I am.
Right. So one thing I know about irrevocable trusts is that it's very difficult to get a loan for the property that's owned by that type of a trust. How do you go around it?
Quite frankly, I have not had a problem at all. I'm going to be honest. I am with Wells Fargo. What you choose which bank you want to be with. One of my clients
Hmm.
is with the Seashell Federal Credit Union in Florida that has 2 locations, very small. My last house that I
Hmm.
did, I'm doing seller financing on it. I did get a loan. The reason I moved to North Carolina, I do a strange thing here called upset bids. So when I won the bid, I got the traditional loan, and now I have somebody paying me $20,000 and then $2,000 a month. It just all goes towards the loan that I have with Wells Fargo. Again, I don't know if it's because I've got a relationship with my banker, but I purposely worked on that relationship to make sure they know what I'm doing. And all he cares about is he wants that 9-digit EIN number, and he doesn't know if it's an LLC or a
Hmm.
trust. That's all they're reporting is the EIN number.
Interesting. Yeah, my understanding about irrevocable trusts and the banks or lenders was that it made it difficult for them to foreclose on a property if it was owned by irrevocable trust. Does this not apply here somehow?
I'm going to be honest. That's a good question. I'm not sure about. If you do something illegal
Okay.
in it, you pierce the veil of the trust. So if you're not paying your mortgage, that could be illegal. But I have not. None of my
Right.
clients have run into that just yet. So that's a good question. I need to get an
Okay.
answer for that.
Interesting. No, it sounds like an excellent idea. So, in a syndication scenario where there are multiple investors uh, that are typically structured as limited partners, are they, in this case, do they become trustees, or what's their role in a trust?
How I would suggest it, and again, it's going to be how you want to set it up. But how we do it with we use the term again, the mothership, and then individual trusts each way. You're so it's
Mhm.
going to be the mothership. So let's call it XYZ Trust is going to work with Abbott Street Trust, and so there's a direct link. So when the money is transferred from one to the other, there's no taxes on it because it's from the trust to the trust. Whoever has their own trust, when they make, they'll be able to spend the money they want. But if they're going to give it to let's say they're going to give it to a child who's not a beneficiary, that's when the taxes happen. As long as the person is the beneficiary of it, it's no problem. So the mother trust would list all the different trusts underneath of it as their beneficiaries. And then you can decide, because you're in charge of your trust, you can say Abbott Trust is no longer a beneficiary as of this date because your plan is whatever you're working on has ended. And then you can add more beneficiaries, and you can decide when they're a beneficiary and when they're not no longer a beneficiary, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I understand. I understand. Okay, how did you how did you discover this, Sally? It clearly it's been around for a long
Yes.
time, but it's not very well known.
Right.
Like why?
Um,
I mean, why understand, but how? I guess
True story.
did you stumble upon this?
I became a real estate investor in late 2018. In 2019, my mentor Jay Tannenbaum was teaching us how to do bank-owned properties. I wholesale 7 properties nationwide. paid off $184,000 in debt. Yay, Sally. My CPA calls me in April, says, you got to come in for a meeting. I'm like, oh, that's never good. You never want your CPA to call you. He
Right.
took it on himself because he knew I was, single family homes, things like this. My tax rate went from 22%, which is depending on, there's four ways to file your taxes: single, head of household, married jointly, married separately. Single's the most expensive way. I was single at the time. So I had $50,000 sitting aside, but because I went up to 24%, I owed the federal government $97,000. So he purposely set up a payment plan per month for me to pay off my short-term capital gains, and kept it together. Signed the paperwork, got my parking validated. Go down to the parking garage. Literally cried for 20 minutes. I'm living in Phoenix at the time. If you know anything, Scottsdale's east of Phoenix, so I'm driving home at sunset into the sun with tears just running down my face. Have you ever heard of a book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy?
No, I have not.
It's an older book. It's from the 1930s, so his examples are older, but it's really true. You put a problem into your mind, you sleep on it, and then you come up with a solution. You have your subconscious mind work for you. Wake up the next morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, going, I have to research this article. I read an article several years ago about the Rockefeller Spendthrift Trust and about how they set it up, and how another book, The Creature from, oh, now I'm going to forget the title of it, from a South Carolina island. Oh, it's all about how the banks got set up. So I researched the
Okay.
Rockefeller Spendthrift Trust. I mean, I just Googled it and got several articles. I started researching, calling places. So I followed the path. Google for 5 months. I called the law firm that's in Houston. They told me they didn't do this. The next day, I get a phone call from California. I don't know about you, Eugene, but I don't pick up the phone usually if I don't have the person on my phone. I pick it up, and it was one of the
Right.
representatives. He says the law firm doesn't want to be known for it. They want us to, So Paul, who was the representative, he got me signed up with my business and beneficial trust September of 2000. I'm not trying to crow,
Mhm.
but my first property in it was a bank owned property that went to auction. I paid $20,000 for it. When it finally went to auction, it went all the way up to $64,900. I saved $10,359 on that first property. I told Paul I wanted to teach this in my real estate group in Phoenix, and I became an associate of his. Unfortunately, he passed away unexpectedly last November. The law firm calls me and they're like, "Do you want to become a direct affiliate of ours?" I'm like, "That would be lovely." And now my thinking to results teacher made me start my own business in March of 2022, because I was teaching in my real estate group, and she's like, "You're playing small, you got to play much, much bigger." So that's one of the reasons I'm looking for podcasts like yours, talking on stages. I just talked to a Forex meeting down in Miami. Do you do any Forex investing?
No, I don't. Well, I'm familiar. I'm, invested, not invested, but I held a lot of cash in foreign currency, so definitely well familiar in it, but don't do it professionally.
Well, for Forex investors, unfortunately, they get taxed twice: capital gains and interest income taxes. So, a fantastic audience for me to talk to, because they have not heard of this. And like, you mean I could save both those taxes at the
Mhm.
same time? Like, yes, you can.
Right. Right. Well, yeah. In international law, there's always, the dual taxation treaties and all that that needs to be considered, right? So I would imagine for international investors investing into United States, this type of structure could be beneficial as well, right?
It can be. True story. Of my thinking to results coach Susan is actually in London, so I went over to visit her, and we I don't know if you've ever been to London, but we were in Old Town London at this incredible party. I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm in the turn of the century thing. And so a gentleman comes up to me,
Right.
and he's living in London, but he's a Saudi Arabian. His parents have
Mhm.
3 condos in Trump Tower. One of the people who've been living in the condo for 13 years wants to buy the condo from them, and that they're going to sell it for quite a bit of money. So I explained, hey, it's very easy to do. I can't help you with your real estate, lots of real estate in London and Saudi Arabia and everything, but there is one more form for you to fill out. And when they filled out the information, They have condos in New York, in Chicago, in Miami. They have a charter boat that can take 27 people. I mean, this an amazing boat that I haven't been on yet. But it's all the real estate and things they have in the United States. I can help them with the taxes on there. In Saudi Arabia, in the UK, I can't help them with taxes there. I have
Right.
several Canadian clients who, yes, they're a Canadian national, but they have real estate in the United States, and I'm helping them save the taxes on their US real estate, not their Canadian real estate.
Mhm. Amazing, amazing. And so the property could be transferred into this trust at any point in time, right? It doesn't need to be done before, like in our case, development starts. Could it be done later on?
I would suggest put it in the trust as fast as you can because one thing you don't want to have is
Okay.
liability. And let's say
Hmm.
that first property I told you about that I saved $10,000 on. I bought it in July of 2020. I bought it for $20,000. I knew it was going to go to auction starting at $50,000. COVID shut the auction houses down. In September, did two simple bill of sales. One bill of sale from my LLC to my name. Second bill of sale from my name to the trust. I'm living in Phoenix. I go to the bank, get them notarized. Um, it's a law. Money has to be considered. It doesn't say how much. I had $10 in my wallet. I just handed it to my banker. He put a note into his notary book, handed me back the $10. I scanned the two documents to the attorney in Raleigh. Next day, the attorney in Raleigh asked me for my first page of my trust. And in September 2021, when the property finally went to auction, they used the bank account, the EIN, and everything else, and I got to save the $10,000. And I bought more real estate with that extra $10,000 I didn't have that I would have had to pay or put aside for a whole year.
Hmm. Wow, that is impressive. That is impressive. How much does it cost to set up a trust like that?
Good question. It's a one-time fee. It's $20,000. It's going to go from generation to generation. So, like my most recent thing I did was I won a tax lien here in the Charlotte area. I'm doing seller financing on it. The family that's moved in, they can't afford the $180,000, but 2 years hopefully they will. That one house alone, I'm going to save over $40,120 in interest income taxes because I'm doing seller financing on that. I've done 28 wholesale
Hmm.
deals since then. You will file a 1041 tax return, not a 1040. We introduce you to the CPA who will do your first 1041 tax return. Part of that $20,000 fee is that we pay for your first year. After that, it's up to you,
Hmm.
Eugene, if you're going to stay with that CPA, if you're going to go back to your own CPA, they'll teach your CPA how to file the taxes. You'll how do I say this? You're completely in charge of your trust. No one's going to tell you you have to
Right.
do this, you have to do that. Some of my real estate investors purposely aren't shutting down LLCs because they have business credit that several business cards on the LLC, and I just make sure and I make them sign an affidavit saying you understand keeping that LLC open leaves you open to being sued. We've discussed this, and they build business credit on the new EIN slowly. You'll bring it up, but we're not the LLC police. We're not going to tell you you have to do something. We
Hmm.
advise if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yep. I get it. I get it. Interesting. What about privacy of the trustees, of the owners? Is there a way to protect their privacy, to protect their identity?
Completely correct. So, because you have a non-grantor, you will need their social security number. I
Hmm.
use a family friend. This was a bad decision. Roy knew me before I was born. At the time, I took him to lunch, and because I was starting both the business and the beneficial trust, he had to sign his name 17 times. Roy, 87 years old, had arthritis of his hands. Not a good decision. If you can't find someone or don't want to ask someone for their social security, either myself or another representative from the law firm does it free of charge. There's just paperwork that we fill out, and then paperwork that to go away to sign us off from the trust. This is part of the paperwork
Hmm.
you do turn into the bank to open up the bank account because they want to know exactly what's happening. It wasn't the law firm,
Right.
it was Wells Fargo that made me have an associate trustee. They were afraid, if I walked out the building and got hit by a bus or lightning struck me and I die, who's going to take over? So I had to put opening my trust on hold until I talked to my nephew to explain to him what I wanted to make it. And he's just like, I'm going to have all your money? Excellent. He was very happy about being my associate trustee. But I'm like, no, you're not going to get all the money. I'm going to leave it if I decide I leave 50% of my estate to him and only 10% to my other nieces and nephews, nobody can complain about it. But I'll make sure he's taken care of because
Mhm.
he's going to be the next. He'll be the next trustee of the trust.
Right. Wonderful. Wonderful. So this became your full-time business, right?
I still do a lot of I
Advising
still
people
do
on
a
how
lot
to.
of real estate in the mornings. Um, I don't know if you know about North Carolina. Have you ever been to an auction anywhere in the United States?
Never been to an auction. I've been to charity auctions, but not real estate, not a foreclosure auction.
Well,
I'm familiar with the
you're,
process, but
you know,
not in person.
any place else in the United States, you either have that day or 24 hours to pay for the house. Here in North
Mhm.
Carolina, there are 101 counties, and you have to know what the county does. It's either 10 business days or 10 calendar days. So I came out for Christmas of 2021, and I'm right now in Union County, literally a mile from Mecklenburg County, where Charlotte is. Union
Mhm.
County, it's 10 business days. As my friend Charlotte, my friend Cheryl at the office says, I went to high school. I didn't go to college. I can count 10 days. So Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, all were part of the 10 days. I won three upset bids. One was a house and two were raw land. And I wholesaled it. My brother's like, are you robbing a bank? Where are you getting all this money from? Well, this past Christmas, everyone figured out what I did because the Charlotte people are like, how did we miss the auction? Well, I just went to another county and just won a tax lien, somebody at the tax lien sale bought it for $12,000. Went in 4 days later, paid $12,750. I have to do it in person, and nobody else upset me. And I won that bid. And now I did seller financing on Facebook Marketplace. The family that's moving
Mhm.
in, it's a 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath house. That they're moving down from Long Island. They don't have credit history here in North Carolina. They're like, wow, we could get this house, and I'm like, now in when did we do this? We did this in May. So in May of 2020, May of 2024, they have three ways to do something. They can either get their own mortgage, they can pay me another $20,000 that's non-refundable, or they can move out. And she's just like, we hope to be able to afford a mortgage, because everything they're paying me for the next 24 months is going to come off the price. Like, they don't get their $20,000 back by giving them credit for that $20,000. So it's going to make the house much more reasonable because now you're going to make me do math. They're going to save, uh, wow, the house would probably need a loan for $100,000 to pay for $160,000 house by that time, and everyone's happy. I mean, the bank's happy, because the county's happy, they got paid off. Everybody else, it's just a win-win-win for everybody.
Right. Right. Amazing. Amazing. Do you work with outside investors when you do these deals, or is it just you kind of hassling, trying to make deals?
Um, True story. My niece got married up in Sitka, Alaska. I had to move my car literally a mile. I rented a car and had to move it a mile. He's my I call him my cousin, but he's married to my cousin. He just retired from Mellon Bank. He's in the car with me, and OnStar goes off. And one of my deals, I was foreclosing on a note. Long involved story, but it was the brother. And I'm like, hey, I'm in Alaska right now. I'm not going to be home until Tuesday. I'll deal with this. And so my cousin Eric's like, I just retired and I have this huge 401k that I need to invest in. And so he started working with me, and now I've got three other of his friends, and they're like, make us more money, Sally. Keep doing what you're doing. And um, I use
Right.
some of their money. I use most of my own money on this tax lien for $12,750. I just use my own money. I just did another deal, and now I don't even need to take a loan out on the house. I'm just making pure profit on it, pure returns, and hopefully win another upset bid and do the same thing over again.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. That's amazing.
Correct. I I'm trying to get other people to be my bird dogs for me, but yeah, it's just it's an interesting. In the mornings I go to auction sales, and then I do my trust in the afternoons. If that makes sense, I'm trying to keep it making my own
Right.
little empire going.
Right. Wonderful. Well, we're coming up on our time. I'd like to keep it at about half an hour.
Okay.
Anything else, Sally, you wanted to mention? How does one get a hold of you?
But one of the things I just started, Eugene, is a free class. It's online. You just go to my first and last name, www.sallygimon.com. It's a 23-minute video that was a slide deck. There's 3 articles from Forbes magazine. There's 2 pages of case law, and then a chart that, again, if you're making $80,000 a year, how much you would save in every single state. There's 7 states that do not have state income taxes. South Dakota, Nevada, Texas, Florida. I can't remember them all. But if you're making more than that with the business trust, you could be saving thousands of dollars. With the beneficial trust, it depends where your tax rate is. So all my real estate deals, I purposely use 24% because that's where when I started the trust, that's where I was at. Now, I'll be honest, I'd be much higher in the tax brackets because I'm doing so much more real estate. But again, the trustisyou.com is my squeeze page to learn about it. There's a video there, but the class at sallygimon.com, that's where I've been sending everybody, and I'm getting so many more clients from that because they can watch the class 2 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, whichever way they like.
Right. Amazing. Yeah, and we'll definitely have links in the episode description. So do check out the description and get a hold of Sally.
I appreciate
Sally,
you having
thank you
me
very
here.
much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Sally Gimon comes along, gotta make your taxes small. Spendthrift Trust is her call. Save your money, that's the goal. No more cap gains tax you pay. Income taxes fade away. Dividend taxes never stay. Watch that burden float away. No more hassle, no more pains. Sally helps you break the chains.